All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
And hello, it is an exciting day. I know I love Wednesdays too, you know. The week's potential hasn't quite been realized, you know, you can still see it out there, but you've done a lot, or you've successfully put off doing a lot, which is one of my favorites. Yeah, you really feel like you still have so much of the week left. Then go, you know what, I don't need to really handle the stuff that I said I was going to handle on Monday and Tuesday. I can push that to Wednesday or Thursday or even Friday. Yes. So if you are such a procrastinator, which would be a ding word, welcome to this festival of procrastination. We do have quite the show. Of course, John Rothmann comes in on Wednesdays. We love talking to John Rothmann. John and I mix it up a little bit, but generally we're on the same side of things. It's just how we get there that we disagree about occasionally. But his analysis and his knowledge of history is just, it's unchallenged. I mean, it's just terrific. So we're looking forward to getting to him. Bottom of the first hour. Kim has joined. Hi, Kim.
Kim, how are you?
Hello.
And Albert is here as well.
Albert, thank you.
Yeah, so let's get going. By the way, I was listening to the Nikki Maduro show, watching and listening this morning, and listening and watching two mothers, because Nikki and Kim are both mothers.
Well, you calling him mother?
Talk about sending their kids to high school and how the challenges of high school are significant. And of course, the opportunities of high school are significant, but how the anxiety around high school and going to high school, that's super significant, right? And the anxiety is felt by both the kids and the parents.
It's true.
And I must tell you, I listened with great interest. First of all, I've always loved, and this goes back to KGO, and if those are new here, because we've got a lot of new viewers and listeners, this show came from a radio station, very powerful radio station, that collapsed essentially as it was owned by a huge communications company that changed the format. So we took the show from the radio and we moved it here to YouTube. That's why people are just getting the word that, you know, we're here, etc. But also, obviously, the show's changing because it's more than just the Bay Area audience that used to listen to this radio station called KGO. But on KGO, and this is where Kim comes from, Albert comes from, I come from, and Rothmann, etc., and Nikki, on KGO, one of my favorite things was listening to Nikki, who used to be on before me, listening to her talk about her kids, because I don't have kids. And so for me, it's a lot of fun to listen to people who have kids talk about kids and the challenges. And it all just sounds really interesting and fun. And then it's heartbreaking, I know. So I listened to Kim, listened to Nikki this morning talking about it. And I had that same feeling of, one, being super interested, like, wow, this is really, these are two super smart women in Kim and Nikki who have, I'm sure, kids who are pretty smart, but still they're adolescents, you know, going through all that. Doesn't matter how smart you are. You got all that crap going on in your body and your mind. You want to be accepted. You want to be popular, all the stuff of society. And that stuff never changes.
Yeah, no matter where you are.
And no matter how old you get.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, life is this popularity contest, and you're thinking, well, when does this stop? When do these cliques stop? When do these, you know, these groups and the bullying and all that, when does that stop? Never.
Yeah.
That's the memo. I mean, I don't know that I would tell my kids that, you know, and, you know, before
Kids,
their bedtime story.
Let me tell you the Mark Thompson School of Life rule number one.
Exactly.
What?
Yes.
It's all a bunch of crap and it never stops.
Let me tell you, it only gets worse.
What?
All right. So I listened today to these two mothers talking about sending their kid to school and taking their kid to high school. and I actually got emotional in the kitchen listening to it. It was the
Really?
weirdest thing, man. I'm thinking, dude, why are you so affected by this? Because as they talk, first of all, I think it's because I need some meds or something. Maybe could that be the reason? Yeah. All right. I have no idea. I mean, I don't know
fake.
why.
That's real.
I don't know why I felt so moved by it.
I don't think you should apologize for how you feel.
I'm just saying that it was significant to hear these two mothers worrying for their kids as they go forward. And also, at the same time, and I'm mentioning this because maybe some of you are doing the same dance in your family or you have done it, at the same time knowing that you can't really be your kid's shadow to protect them from all this stuff, because that stuff that's going to happen to them is going to help make them a better person. A lot of it, you know. And it's certainly going to inform who they are, right? So you cannot protect them all the time because they need to learn to protect themselves. That said, I mean, what goes on in high school now, I can only imagine. It's just a crazy world of social media and, you know, bullying.
It's a giant ball of emotion when you send your kid off to elementary school or for the first year of high school, as we did this morning. And you know, you don't want to put that anxiety that you have on your kids. You don't want to share your worries with them so that then they carry that. But the minute they walk out, it's like you're just hoping they have an easy day of it, you know, that they don't get made fun of, or that they get included, and that they have good teachers, that you have all these other worries. And then I'll tell you, Mark, and here's where I get emotional. Mm-hmm. On top of all the normal mom worries that you have, and hopes and dreams for your kid, and you hope they behave, and you hope they're accepted, and you hope they have a good time, and you all these things. Now you hope that there's no violence at school.
Right.
Now you hope that now we're in the big time. I know it happens at elementary schools too, but you know, violence and threats and whatnot seem to be more prevalent at the high school level. Yeah. So now I send my daughter, my beloved child that I tried for years and years to have, that I am, you know, I mean, we all love our kids, but I just can't even tell you how amazing I think she is. We all think that, but I just, you know, you send your precious off to this place where you don't know.
Yeah. And
morning.
Yeah, it's the United States of guns. Let's just be honest. And you worry about that. I don't know what the actual statistics are, but it doesn't matter what the actual statistics are. Look at the actual statistics of winning the lottery.
Yeah.
The actual stats on winning the lottery are so insane. No one should even, you know, drive by a lottery location and you know, buy a ticket, even if it's on the way. Yet we do, because we delude ourselves. Similarly, I don't know what the real stats are. Maybe, you know, Albert, you know, I don't mean to turn this conversation into a dark conversation about school violence.
Sorry.
But when you...
I took it there, but because I thought about it today. You know,
yeah, but I'm just saying the stats may not actually justify the objective reality about what the school violence threat is, may not justify the anxiety, the amount of anxiety you have about it. But you're still going to have it, just like the lottery thing, like the lottery dreams that we all have, no matter what the statistics are.
That's
so,
right.
Anyway, that's a little bit of what I was doing this morning as I was listening to Nikki and Kim do their number this morning on
the Mark Thompson Show.
Somebody has corrected me. You're right. First of all, I'm going through my change. I think that's what it is. That's the emotion that is that I'm.
Are you having is it menopause?
Yeah, that's menopause.
Girl, you just woo.
Yeah, I am really feeling it. And shout out to Ann, and thank you for the super sticker. You know, we are crowd-funded. Appreciate whatever
Big
you
shout out.
Throw to me. I just got some YouTube stuff in yesterday. You know, YouTube revenues down with a blah 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 blah. We it's all. So our effort to stay on the air is very dependent on you. So I very much appreciate super stickers, super chats. We'll always get to. And Ann, you're a regular, and I so appreciate your support. You'll watch the chat, Albert, will you please? Because I can't really keep an eye on the chat while I'm speaking.
Albert, thank you.
Let me put my Clark Kent glasses on for a moment. Menopause is totally a thing. Oh, is it? Oh, how does that work, menopause?
I don't know if it's. I don't think it's scientific.
Well, then that's my favorite. I mean, really, we don't have to always be scientific on this program.
Supposing you
okay.
brought the light inside the body.
Yeah, suppose you brought the light inside the body. Would that take
what
care
else
of the?
is not scientific is PMS, because for years they've been telling us that PMS isn't really a thing based in science, but we all know it's true. This is like menopause. You know it's
didn't know
true,
that.
even though it's not scientifically backed up.
Well,
I'd be willing to bet my lunch that there's alcohol involved.
with me, there could be alcohol involved. You're the heat of the day in the afternoon. All I want is a cold beer. And I'm not really a beer drinker, but I'll tell you, it brings me back to my adolescence. The steamy heat of Washington, D.C., the shadow of the Supreme Court, U.S. Congress, the Washington Monument, the Jefferson Memorial, the memorials to all of those who helped found this nation. And in the heat of Washington, all I wanted was a beer. You don't see that anywhere in the Constitution, do you? You don't see that in the Declaration of Independence. No. They leave the beer part out. And they have all this other Constitution stuff in.
The Mark Thompson Show.
The guy who is so knowledgeable about the Constitution is joining us in about 15 minutes, John Rothmann. I do want to mention some of what's going on with the Donald Trump case, and much of the Trump stuff I'm going to push for just a few minutes with your indulgence so I can speak about it with John Rothmann. But what we did advertise, then and still to come today, what they've done in Arkansas is racist. It's straight up racist. And I will share that with you in a moment. You know who the governor of Arkansas is now, don't you? Anybody? You know who the governor of Arkansas is? Anybody in the chat? The governor of racist Arkansas. Who is the governor of racist Arkansas? Where they just pulled off this racist move that I'll tell you about.
Can I give a hint?
You can, they got it. John Watson is first to buzz in. It's Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
Mark Thompson.
Yeah.
No, it's not me.
No.
Nice job on that, John. Yeah, actually, a lot of people got it. Chad and Lynn and Kathy, and Beth, Vilma.
The first
and
woman to serve as the governor of Arkansas.
I would have expected better from
history. She had an
the fairer
opportunity
sex.
Here.
Yeah.
Yes, she had an opportunity to do something wonderful. And
all right, I'll do the story now. Is that what you're telling me, Albert? Albert's saying, do the story now. You've talked enough about it.
Albert, thank you.
Well, let me tell you that African American AP studies, advanced placement studies, canceled now by Arkansas officials, and they canceled it at the 11th hour. In other words, kids are already signed up on all their classes, all that sort of thing. And at the last minute, the Arkansas Department of Education has removed the AP African American Studies course from its schools. It is insane, and it's straight up racist. The Arkansas Education Association says they won't give credit for this class, and they did it at 4:02 on a Friday before schools start on the following Monday. Here's the quote. Having this course, this is a quote from the state's professional organization. I'm trying to find who the quote is from, but you'll get the sense of it. Having the course pulled out from under our students at this late juncture is just another racist move that has already played out in other states. It is our sincere hope that this last-minute decision will be seriously reconsidered in a timely manner so that the students of Arkansas will be able to take this course this year to be able to receive both high school credit and college credit pending successful completion. Look, this is all that stuff that Ron DeSantis has done in Florida. He rejected the course, the African American AP Studies course in Florida. They called it, in Florida, the Department of Education called it, quote, inexplicably contrary to Florida law and significantly lacking educational value.
I'll ding you for inexplicably.
Yeah, and that's definitely a ding word. Throughout the first pilot year, we heard countless stories from the classroom about how this course opened minds, changed lives, and provided a much richer understanding of the country, said a spokesperson of the College Board. All schools can begin offering AP African American Studies in the 2024-2025 school year, they said the College Board. But then, obviously, Arkansas Department of Education, they rolled this back. They say they encourage the teaching of all American history and support rigorous courses not based on opinions or indoctrination. They consider this indoctrination, the teaching of African American studies and the African American experience is such a critical part of the texture of where we are today and understanding the history of the past. So in any case, Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders signed this executive order that prohibits certain lessons on race, specifically targeting critical race theory. This critical race theory is ridiculous since it was as you know, a PhD essentially targeted class or a course of study that is supposed to be for advanced study, if not PhD, master's level. The College Board told media organizations that more than 200 colleges and universities have signed on to provide college credit for this course, including the University of Arkansas. 6 schools in the state were expected to participate in this second year of this pilot program, including Central High School. Central High School. This is bizarre. You couldn't write this crap. Listen to this. Central High School is where the Little Rock Nine, that entire thing involving public school desegregation went down. It went down there during the civil rights movement, the violent civil rights movement for blacks in America to get a place at the table, the educational table. So that it could be disallowed there is just, it's a sad comment on where we are. On this first day of school, we share in their surprise, confusion, and disappointment at this new guidance that the course won't count toward graduation credits or weighted the same as other AP courses offered in the state. That is what's happening in Arkansas. How far we've come, and yet we haven't come far at all.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I did want to mention what's going on with Rudy Giuliani. Rudy's got money problems. You know, this guy was riding high. His boyfriend, Donald Trump, embattled, but I think the good soldier, was Rudy Giuliani, out there every night. He was on Fox News. He was on pretty much anybody who had a camera and a mic. Rudy Giuliani was finding his way to them. And Rudy Giuliani was getting, it was advertised at the time, $20,000 a day, remember, for his defense of Donald Trump. Now, there was always a question as to whether or not Rudy would get that money. But that's what his bill was. With Trump, you kind of want to get the money, what? Up front. Yeah. You know, if you go to a lawyer, usually they ask you for a retainer. So there's not a big back and forth when you get the bill, because usually when you get the bill from the lawyer, wow, it's really big. But Giuliani, sorry, go ahead, Kim, what?
I was just going to say, I mean, yes, Trump doesn't pay his bills, and so you're going to get stiffed, right? Unless the PAC is paying for it, in which case, excellent. But also, it's not just that. From what I understand, it's because he's defending Trump or doing Trump's bidding, that he's facing all kinds of sanctions and legal cases where he has to hire lawyers, Giuliani, to defend him in these cases. So now he has legal bills thanks to Trump. Is that right?
Yes, it's true. And Kim is 100% right. He's facing sanctions. He's facing a defamation suit. He's facing a lot of other legal issues. But all those roads lead back to his defense of Trump. And so when you're tearing up the scenery the way Rudy Giuliani was in every appearance, and you're defaming people and you're making crap up, and when you're just pulling every argument out of your ass, you're going to end up with this kind of situation where, hey, dude, when the dust settles, you're going to find some repercussions as a result of what you've said. So that's what's happened.
And now you need a lawyer. Okay.
Right. Rudy Giuliani staring down hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal bills and sanctions amid numerous lawsuits, in addition, of course, to these new criminal charges. In court on Monday, Giuliani said the legal quagmires is a ding word, have left him effectively out of cash. He even appears to have responded to some of the money crunch by listing for sale a 3-bedroom Manhattan apartment that he owns. Not knowing anything else about his apartment, except it is I'm sure, doorman apartment in a nice area. All we know is it's 3 bedrooms owned by Rudy Giuliani. How much is he asking in this attempt to raise some money for his legal defense? How much is Rudy Giuliani selling his 3-bedroom Manhattan apartment for? I'm taking guesses in the chat, and I will take them in replay as well. Don't look at the answer replay. If you're watching in replay, put down your guess. I want to see who gets this. Rudy Giuliani has a money crunch, and he's listed his 3-bedroom Manhattan apartment for how much? Throw up some guesses up there, will you, Albert or Kim? 3.5 says Sandra. 6.5 says Makai. Wait a minute. Makai. It's right. 6.5. Holy cow. Makai, I will not let... Oh, look, 6.5 is what Huge in Japan says. Julie says 6.5. Well, maybe this is... maybe it's more common knowledge than I thought. These are very good... Or these are extraordinary guesses. Yeah. Anyway, add in all the legal fees coming from the Georgia case for Giuliani, who's now facing, 18 counts? 13 counts, I think. He's going to have a team of lawyers. So the bills are going to he needs all of that 6.5 mil. It's unclear, I think, on the Georgia stuff, how much the Trump PAC may cover, although I don't think they're going to be riding to the rescue of so many defendants. Yeah. But not including standard legal fees, Giuliani faces nearly $90,000 in sanctions. That's from a judge in a defamation case. He's got a $20,000 monthly fee to a company to host his electronic records, $15,000 or more for a search of his records, and even a $57,000 judgment against his company for unpaid phone bills. That's like little potatoes, right? Not really a big deal. But these are a lot of bills that he's not paying, and they are, they're piling up. He's declined in court to give any details of his financial state, but as I say, we know this because he has pled poverty in court. They said that producing a detailed financial report is only meant to embarrass Giuliani and draw attention to his misfortunes, his lawyers said. Giuliani's financial situation is likely to become even more difficult in all the ways that we've just identified for you and more. While Giuliani's attorney's fees have not been paid directly by Trump's political action committee, so here's the answer. Trump's PAC did pay more than $300,000 in May to a company handling Giuliani's archived records for evidence preservation in court cases. That's according to federal campaign finance records and court filings. He's having financial difficulties, his lawyers said. They said those very words. That's a quote. So what's happening now is Giuliani's having a meltdown financially. He's facing disbarment proceedings in D.C. and New York. His law license is already suspended. And of course, his lawyers say, well, look, you've taken away the guy's law license. That's going to make it harder for him to make money and pay all these various bills he has. The criminal charges that Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis brought against Trump, Giuliani, 17 others will have big bills there. And, with all this money owed, it's unclear that Giuliani has a route out. When the FBI sees, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, and why? Because he's buddies with Trump. This is not the kind of friend you want. I mean, it's enough that he could stand up and make an ass out of himself defending the indefensible. Then when it costs you hundreds of thousands of dollars and puts you in a financial ruin, maybe you should reconsider your friends.
Yeah, it's really even more than that, but I agree. He tied himself to Trump politically. I think he tied himself to Trump, and the people who tie themselves to Trump do it for so many different reasons. If you read Michael Cohen's book, you see the power, the charisma. I mean, again, we can regularly talk about Trump, and I think, Trump's a dangerous guy. He's, I can let John Rothmann speak about, Trump and the realities concerning Donald Trump. But I do feel there's a dynamic about Donald Trump that is intoxicating to people around him. And Cohen speaks of this in his book. And when you look at the way all of these guys have completely tied themselves to Trump in a way to destroy their reputations, Lindsey Graham comes to mind. I mean, I'm not suggesting that Lindsey Graham had some kind of high-end reputation to begin with, but I think it was higher end than it is now. So that's just on the reputational level. The financial side of this, you're always left holding the financial bag with Trump, always. And Trump has done well. He set up the hotel there in Washington, and that became just a place where money poured in from anyone who had business in government in Washington. And he got money pouring in and still has it pouring in from the Secret Service, et cetera, and all the different clubs and international interests he has. And those also became places where anyone with business with the government of Washington and Donald Trump, that's where they poured money. We told you stories across the board as to how they. So those are the instruments by which Donald Trump could continue to get money pouring into his organization, not to mention the PAC and all this sort of thing. I mean, and that's not to mention a lot, because there's a lot of money there. Giuliani has none of that. So when you look at the others, Kim is so right. Those people who are close to Donald Trump, they're out there carrying his water. But when the time comes to pay the bill, Trump ain't paying it. So
Luis says maybe not. He says, I'm sure he paid Rudy in Trump bucks redeemable for your choice of Trump ties, Trump vodka, a weekend stay at the Taj Mahal, or an honorary degree from TU.
Yeah,
Thank you,
I want you to
Luis.
take, Rudy, I want you to take this voucher. This voucher is good for anything, any meal in one of my clubs.
There's never been anything like this.
That's great, Luis. Great call. Chad says in the super chat, I've told the MAGA I work with time and time again, nothing good ever comes with associating yourself with Trump. The MAGA, thank you, Chad, and thanks to the super chat. The MAGA faithful, there is nothing you can tell them, and you can give them the facts, but there is nothing really you can tell them that they'll accept. That's why they're MAGA faithful. Natalie says, one use of the Diet Coke button. Exactly, that's what that voucher's for. Albert, I want to ask you a question. Can I run this piece from GMA this morning? I like it as a setup piece to Rothmann. Or should I wait? Let's do Kim's news, then run that piece, and then Rothmann. Is that how you want to do it?
Yeah, that sounds great. The
Okay.
news, the video, then we get to our pal, John Rothman.
Okay.
Albert, thank you.
Let's plan on that. You can, if you haven't yet, smash the like button like a boss.
Smashed it with your iron rod.
Damn it, do it hard.
Smashed it with your iron rod.
Yeah, hit that thumbs up. John Rothman awaits. He's in our lush green room. That sexy
fancy.
fool. Yeah. Rothman will come next after Kim's news. It's a Wednesday, Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. Let's start with what's going on in Maui today. At least 106 people dead after the devastating wildfires in Hawaii. The devastating wind-driven fire that ripped through the town of Lahaina on Maui is already now the deadliest wildfire in modern U.S. history. Officials expect the toll to continue to rise. They haven't searched the majority of the burned out buildings yet. Estimates are that the economic cost to Maui could approach $7 billion. And I was reading this morning that the focus has now turned to Hawaii's biggest power utility and whether the company did enough to prevent this wildfire when high winds swept over Maui last week. There are lawyers now for Lahaina residents already suing Hawaiian Electric. They say the power equipment wasn't strong enough to withstand strong winds, and the company should have shut it down, the power, before the winds came. And wildfire experts say that there's precedent. Look what happened in California. You learn from each other. They should have known, given what happened in California and the warnings about Maui, that they needed to institute some type of public safety power shutoff, the PSPS that we have here, that there are shortcomings in Hawaii Electric's actions. So there's no official cause yet, but the attention is being turned toward the power lines. And again,
it had to be power related. That makes so much sense. And there are two things that we spoke of, I believe, on the heels of this, two grim things. One of them is the lawsuits. You knew they were going to come right away. How could they not? The warnings weren't issued. The power went out. The water wasn't there. I mean, there's so many places to lay blame, and you can lay legal blame. So you knew those were going to come right away, and they are. And the second, what was the second thing, Albert? I had a second thing.
Menopause.
Oh, I know what it was. It was the opportunists, the real estate opportunists, the guys who come in. I say guys generically, these organizations that come in and they try to scoop up this real estate. I mean, this prime real estate that has been destroyed by fire, and they try to get it for a dime on a dollar. That's happening as well. And there's an epidemic of that down there as well. So those two things, as anticipated, the ugly facts around this fire.
Yeah, there are already warnings from the governor of Hawaii, and they're trying to institute some type of law where they can keep anyone from outside that wasn't already a landowner or a homeowner in Hawaii from coming from outside and trying to buy land that was burned, or any land at all, just for at least until the rebuilding happens. So we'll see if they're successful with doing that. I guess there's a lot of a thought that maybe that's not the right way to go, but I don't know how you protect the land or the people of Hawaii without coming up with something. But speaking of fire, there is another fire burning here in California that is prompting evacuations. Officials in Siskiyou County say this fire, called the Head Fire, has spread to 2,000 acres now. Sheriff's office issuing evacuations orders for communities along the Klamath River. This fire sparked yesterday in an area that was hit by lightning. The Chronicle in San Francisco says a huge cloud produced by the wildfire is now creating its own lightning. Lightning-caused fires were also reported yesterday in nearby Mendocino County in the Tahoe region as well. Federal prosecutors pushing back, though, against Hunter Biden's lawyers. So here's the latest. The lawyers for the president's son claimed this week federal prosecutors reneged on the plea agreement that recently fell apart. So in a court filing yesterday, prosecutors fired back. They said Biden's lawyers were being misleading and should have fully understood the terms of the plea deal before they walked into court. The agreement centered around Hunter Biden's tax evasion and gun charges that are now sitting in the hands of a Department of Justice special prosecutor. Here we go again with the heat wave.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah, right. Exactly.
The Pacific Northwest bracing for a potentially record-breaking temperature heat wave this week. Heat-related warnings and advisories issued in parts of Washington, Idaho, Oregon, Montana, and here in California. Forecasters urging people in these states prepare for triple-digit temperatures until Thursday. Factors like high winds and low humidity, in addition to the heat, are bringing greater risk of wildfires in some areas. Really muggy here in the North Bay yesterday, which is kind of odd weather for us. So it was in the 80s and 90s over the last couple days, but you went outside and it just felt hotter than that because it was kind
It's hot as Hades out there, I'll tell you that. I mean,
sticky.
I went out there, got the papers this morning. I like to get the actual paper, you know, the actual paper. You turn it and look at it.
Did you go outside with a robe and your coffee cup in your hand? No?
Normally I have my staff do it, as you're aware, but the summer season has brought some vacations that have turned out to be less than timely. In any case, I had to go out on my own. All the way to the bottom of the driveway.
I'm so sorry.
Driveway to the Thompson estate. You might imagine it's quite some walk. In any case, the heat was overwhelming. I was all too happy to return to the controlled climate of the Thompson household.
Oh, I'm glad you made it through that. That sounds like a rough one.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's talk about this man who, it's interesting because I haven't heard a lot about this story, but this is a Utah man who was killed by FBI agents earlier this month after threatening President Biden on social media. Reportedly, he confronted police with an assault-style rifle 5 years ago as well. Records made public this week show Craig Robertson allegedly pointed an AR-15 at two Google Fiber workers in 2018. According to the police report, that triggered a bit of a standoff before Robertson finally followed officers' commands to drop the weapon. The 75-year-old Robertson was shot and killed by FBI agents August 9th after they showed up at his home to make an arrest. A new pack of gray wolves have been spotted in California in the Sequoia National Forest. They were first seen in July, and now DNA evidence reveals there are 5 of them, an adult female wolf and her 4 pups. Gray wolves are native to California, but they were hunted to extinction in the 1920s, or near extinction, we should say. There are only about 12 gray wolves in California, and this newest pack lives about 200 air miles away from the nearest pack, also being tracked by the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. The department says the pack is the only pack that's been seen living in the southern part of the state. A reminder that wolves are an endangered species and protected under both state and federal law. But it seems like they're reproducing and maybe coming back.
Yeah, not a lot of them, but yeah,
No,
you're right. We're going the
slow.
right direction anyway.
Slow but sure. Big show tonight. Let me tell you, not as good as the Mark Thompson show, but
what show is that?
well, people living along California's central coast.
The Perseid meteor shower? What is this? What could it be?
No, it's not Perseid. It's a nighttime show thanks to another SpaceX rocket launch.
Yeah.
Thanks, Elon. It will be
Elon's
a
company.
routine Starlink internet satellite launch from northwestern Santa Barbara County.
There's never been anything like this.
Right. I think there has actually, though, the last time was the launch.
The launch is scheduled for 12:01 a.m. Thursday. A Falcon 9 rocket will carry 21 satellites from Vandenberg Space Force Base to low Earth orbit. If all goes as planned, it will be the second SpaceX launch in about 6 hours. Another Falcon 9 is scheduled to lift off from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida today at 5:14 p.m. Pacific time. It will be carrying 22 Starlink satellites.
Wow.
Whatever's going on up there,
extremely well.
they're throwing up an awful lot of satellites. What's happening?
Yeah. And what's the best place to see it?
Well, there's the launch tonight in California is from Vandenberg in Santa Barbara County.
So I
prefer the Walmart parking lots.
Well, there's a Walmart
you
parking
see a
lot up there.
streak of light across the sky and you live on the central coast. Basically, that's probably what it is.
I'm loving it.
The aliens are not coming to scoop you up.
Okay.
This is weird that I don't know.
You
why
would say
people
that in the mainstream media.
do this. Adele got emotional at her recent Las Vegas concert doing a gender reveal for a New York couple. The pop star offered a shout out to a Hudson Valley couple who unfurled a banner asking her to open a sealed envelope containing their baby news.
Oh my God.
Big shout out.
Is that not weird?
Yeah.
Adele, tell me what I'm having. You're weird.
Well, it's theatrical. It's dramatic. I'll say that. I don't know how weird it is. Maybe it is.
Announced that Chris Dare and his wife Chantal Lord are having a baby boy. Naturally,
that's very
couple
nice.
was thrilled, but so was Adele, who thanked the expectant parents for giving her the honor of doing the gender reveal.
Oh,
It was great. I loved it.
Well,
everybody
There's never been anything like this.
Millions of views and likes.
It's fantastic.
Okay.
There should be an emoji right next to the like button that indicates you're weird. Like
Who would be the person on stage that you'd like to do your gender reveal? I like. I'm going for Gwen Stefani myself. I like Gwen Stefani.
Really?
Yeah.
For a gender reveal?
Yeah, I don't know. I just like Gwen Stefani. I like everything about Gwen Stefani. I don't know who'd be yours on stage for the gender reveal. Who's your favorite artist?
I mean, I wouldn't share private information in such a public forum, but I would say,
of course not.
No, it says undignified. But perhaps a
John
comedian who would roast me on it. Oh, John Rothman would be fun. Yeah, John Rothman.
Rothman would be a strong reveal.
Yeah, I think so too.
All
I
right.
agree.
Okay.
This report is crowdfunded. We rely on you. So if you could please go to this website, here it is. I know you probably haven't heard.
If you haven't
before,
already, yeah.
Some of you
have.
To tell you,
yeah.
The Mark Thompson Show. The is in there. themarkthompsonshow.com. It is a plethora of information, including the Patreon link and the PayPal link and
It contains Want to support the show? themarkthompsonshow.com, Patreon and PayPal. We are crowd supported. So everything we do.
Link to the merchandise site.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's
GetMarkMerch.com,
everything.
sure.
It's all there.
themarkthompsonshow.com. Yeah.
Yes, and we thank you for checking it out. I'm Kim McAllister, and this be the Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Feels great.
When they raided Mar-a-Lago, God didn't like that.
Yeah, what up, everybody? It's our Wednesday show, and Wednesday brings John Rothman, the sexy fool that he is, to our show. Now, what do you want to do here, Albert? Oh, wait a minute. I first want to acknowledge in real time, as they say, which means live right now, Mike Hendricks, a regular listener, viewer. We adore you. Thank you for your support. Thank you for the super sticker for 10. Yeah, I like it. I was going to give him a big shout out. Can we do a big shout out?
Big shout out.
Thank you. Albert, what do you want to do? Do we bring Rothman in and watch the package together, or do you want to do the package and bring Rothman in? I mean, the media package, the ABC thing. How do you want to do it?
Oh, I kind of like bringing Rothman in to watch it with us.
Okay, let's do it. He is without peer when it comes to political history, the history of presidents, looking back on time. And he likes to mix it up with me once in a while. Comes in on Wednesdays. He is the great one. Also the host of his own podcast, which we will speak of, and will lavish him with praise. Please, everybody, John Rothman. Yeah. Hi, John.
So happy to be here. And if I were going to do a reveal, Mark, it would most assuredly be on the Mark Thompson program with Kim McAllister.
Come on. That's our John. Love it. John, I want you to watch this with me. This is a piece from GMA this morning, kind of a scene setter for what we're going to talk about. Go ahead, Albert, if you'd roll it, please.
Bringing us the latest now on the fourth indictment of Donald Trump. The former president has been firing back online. Senior investigative correspondent Aaron Tursky has the story. Good morning, Aaron.
Morning to you, George. We're still waiting to find out when former President Trump and his co-defendants are going to turn themselves in to authorities here. But what is becoming clear is the scope of the charges they face and how they're beginning to defend themselves. This morning, former President Trump intensifying his attacks on a criminal justice system that has now charged him in 4 places at once, lashing out on social media about a stolen election. Republican Governor Brian Kemp defending his state, posting the 2020 election in Georgia was not stolen. Trump is charged with 13 counts, including racketeering. The indictment putting him atop a criminal organization that also includes 18 aides, attorneys, and associates, and 30 unnamed co-conspirators, all allegedly conspiring to strong-arm Georgia into helping Trump cling to power. Rudy Giuliani peddled false claims about poll workers stealing ballots.
Quite obviously, surreptitiously passing around USB ports as if they're vials of heroin or cocaine.
Giuliani now says he's being indicted for being a lawyer.
I thought when I was doing this, I was protected by the fact I was defending him.
Mark Meadows is trying to move the charges against him to federal court, arguing he was acting as part of his job as White House chief of staff. Meadows allegedly set up Trump's call with Georgia's Secretary of State.
So what are we going to do here, folks? I only need 11,000 votes. Fellas, I need 11,000 votes. Give me a break.
The indictment details 11 calls Trump made, allegedly trying to pressure Republican officials. Prosecutors also take aim at a plot to recruit bogus electors who sent false votes to Washington. One of them, David Schaefer, says his conduct was lawful, appropriate, and specifically authorized by the U.S. Constitution. The district attorney wants to try them all together.
Do I intend to try the 19 defendants in this indictment together? Yes.
The sheriff says he expects all 19 defendants to turn themselves in at the Fulton County Jail. The deadline, noon next Friday. And George, the sheriff says the jail is open 24/7. George?
We will be watching. Aaron, thanks very much for being our chief legal analyst, Dan Ames.
I wanted actually John to hear that legal analysis. Can you play for another 2 minutes, please, Albert, or 90 seconds? I think it is. Can you do that? I want you to hear this legal analysis, John, because this gets to sort of
the federal court. What are his chances?
It's a serious motion.
Stop for a second, Albert. Stop. This is the question. We talked about this yesterday. We were way ahead on the curve on this. If you missed yesterday's show, I asked about two things that could happen in Georgia. One of which is the change of venue to a federal venue, which will be addressed here in a moment. And David Katz talked about this, the former federal prosecutor, and also essentially decapitating the DA. In 8 weeks, the governor can just literally remove the DA and replace that DA with somebody else who doesn't want to pursue these cases, and it all goes away. He told us yesterday, Katz did, that he did not think that likely, that Kemp would do that. So, but I want you to hear Abrams weigh in on this. Just go back a couple of seconds for the setup, but this is on the federal, moving this to a federal venue. And that, I think, is increasingly going to be what they're going to try anyway, John Rothmann. I want to get your thoughts, but go ahead, if you would, please,
Aaron,
Albert.
thanks very much for being our chief legal analyst, Dan Abrams. Dan, I want to start with something we first started talking about yesterday. We now see Mark Meadows, the former chief of staff to President Trump, petitioning to move this case into federal court. What are his chances?
It's a serious motion. His basic argument is, I was working for the federal government at the time. When you're a federal employee working under color of law, you're allowed to make sure your case is tried only in federal court. Now, Fani Willis will respond and say he wasn't acting within the scope of his job when he did this. But he has a decent argument here.
He tried a similar argument. The president tried a similar argument in the hush money case here in Manhattan.
Right, but two differences there. Number one, he wasn't president at the time that the hush money stuff happened. And number two, it's Donald Trump. So Donald Trump has a tougher argument than the people who worked for him. The people who worked for him, I think, can say, look, he was my boss. He was telling me what to do. I was responding. I was working for the federal government. For Donald Trump, it's a tougher argument where Fani Willis will say, clearly he was extending well beyond his role as president. But remember, even this Department of Justice under Merrick Garland has taken a pretty broad view of what is presidential conduct. And so these are serious arguments that the courts are going to have to evaluate.
If the president fails, does not get this into federal court and is convicted, of course, he has no recourse. The president cannot pardon for state offenses.
Correct. The president cannot pardon for state offenses. And by the way, neither can the governor, per se. It'd have to be a 5-year period. It has to be the Georgia Pardon and Parole Board, et cetera. So if he's convicted in Georgia, there really is no out.
Okay. Thank you. We talked about all of that with David Katz yesterday, but I wanted John to hear it all. I do think that that's going to be an increasing drumbeat. Don't you agree, John? They're going to try to get this out of Georgia. I think all of these defendants are going to try to do that. But certainly
yes, and the analysis, though, is absolutely spot on. And I want to emphasize that Mark Meadows has another intent. In Georgia, a court proceeding can be broadcast, we are going to see Donald Trump when he surrenders. But in a federal court, there is no such privilege. So there are several layers here, but this is going to be complex. The bottom line is no one that is defending Donald Trump is saying he did not do these things. And that to me is what is so critical, because the issue to me is not a procedural question. The issue for me is, did Donald Trump try to subvert the will of the people of Georgia? And we're speaking now only about the Georgia case. So, and I agree, by the way, if you listen to Governor Kemp this morning, the governor of Georgia, who is a Republican and a Trump supporter, he made very clear that the election was absolutely fine. There was no shenanigans, it was clear. And so you're now seeing the juxtaposition of Governor Kemp to what Donald Trump would like. And I think that means that Fani Willis's will be upheld in terms of being able to continue what she's doing.
The other thing, John, that I think they don't talk about much in media, I'm sure it's being talked about in some places. We did talk about it with David Katz, and we'll talk about it more tomorrow with David Katz. But the length of time this is all going to take is enormous. I mean, this is a really slow process, notwithstanding the fact that Fani Willis has said, hey, we want to, we're going to try everybody at once, and we'll have this whole thing done by noon tomorrow type thing. You can say, we'll work through lunch, and we'll get it all done by, it literally could take years, couldn't it, John?
Yes, and I think that's what people have to understand. And the Republican Party now is caught on the horns of a great dilemma. This morning, Mike Pence, the former vice president, made clear that Biden did carry Georgia. There were no shenanigans. And he went on to say that he did his job as it needed to be executed under the Constitution. So Donald Trump is trying to flub this off on other people, and it isn't going to work. But more than that, there is something else, and I want people to really think about this. On Monday, we are going to hear Donald Trump's defense of himself. He is going to hold a press conference in New Jersey at Bedminster, and he's going to reveal everything. Okay, great. But the simple truth is that in the end, the Republican Party and the American people will have to choose whether or not these charges have substance. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but I've read the indictment out of Washington and the indictment out of Georgia. And I'm telling you something, these are real indictments. They are powerful. They are compelling. And Donald Trump is going to have a hard time refuting all of the facts and logic. I do not anticipate that this will go to court before the election, but it will go to the court of public opinion in the caucuses and the primaries leading up to the Republican National Convention.
Now, Trump has said that he is going to produce this document or report that completely exonerates him. He used the word exonerates. I wonder if you can speak to that. He says it's coming next week. Of course, it's
Monday.
Again, he's always announcing,
on Monday morning,
my healthcare plan's coming Monday, my infrastructure plan's coming Monday, and my exoneration plan is coming Monday.
Look, whatever you think of whether Donald Trump is being prosecuted or whether he's being persecuted, the people who have filed these indictments have done incredible research. They've put it together in a substantive way. And I do not believe that there is any document that Donald Trump can produce on Monday at Bedminster which will eviscerate those charges. So one of the things you and I are going to be looking at Monday is what he says. And we're also going to look at what happens with the people around him. Look, the people who have been indicted in Georgia may decide to turn on Donald Trump to save themselves. And I'm looking at Mark Meadows in particular, who it is clear to me did cooperate with Jack Smith. And we have to see how that plays out as well.
Eviscerate is a ding word. The question then becomes a political one, and I was so excited to talk to you today about this because your world of your political acumen, I think, is so strong. Acumen's a ding word. The question I have is about the rest of the party and trying to walk as you know, that it's the old line, Democrats fall in love, Republicans fall in line. There is a lockstep aspect to GOP historically and talking points, and certainly when it comes to Trump. It's starting maybe to break up a little bit. I want to get your thought on that. But more to the point, this is an area that they want to get away from, which is relitigating, if you will, the 2020 election. Instead, they, it seems, are only going to be talking about the 2020 election because it's going to be so much in the news every single day.
And wait till we get to the debate stage, which is next week. Look, let's be clear. The Republican Party has a problem. They know that if they go after Donald Trump, that is the candidates, they will alienate his base, and that will doom any chance they have of winning a presidential election in a runoff. I think that's very clear. On the other hand, the Republican Party has to deal with its own conscience. And with deep regret, with a deep sense of sadness, because I was a Republican for many years, the Republican Party has done exactly what Donald Trump Jr. said on the ellipse. There is no Republican Party anymore. It is the party of Donald Trump. And if you listen to Eric Trump's wife, who appeared on one of the Fox broadcasts, it's just down the line nonsense. May I also indicate to you, the Democrats are being accused by the Republicans of not accepting election results. Let's be clear. You have a right to challenge a result, and both parties have done that over the years. But there is no question that the Democrats accepted the result in 2000 when Al Gore conceded, accepted the result in 2016, 2012, got to get my dates right, when Mitt Romney surrendered and said he lost, and Hillary Clinton in 2020. Not only did she, in 2016, not only did she concede the election, she conceded that she lost, she attended Trump's inauguration on January 20th, 2017. So this Republican mythical argument is crazy, but let me give you one other example. I suffer from low blood pressure. So I listen to right-wing radio and television. It's very stimulating. But to hear some on the right say that the election system in our country, we are no longer a republic, they say. We are now a police state. I'm listening to this stuff, and I'm thinking, what nonsense. Now, here's the question. How will the American people react to this? It's all mythology. It is not based in substance. And whether you listen to Mark Levin or Sean Hannity or Laura Ingraham, and you listen to this absolute rubbish, when will the Republicans wake up and say, my God, this is all wrong? So if your question is the Republican Party, right now there are only 3 Republican candidates for president who are really calling Trump out. Hurd, who I think has very little chance of being the nominee. Asa Hutchinson, the same, no real chance. And of course, Chris Christie, who was an acolyte of Donald Trump's, actually wanted the vice presidential nomination in 2016, and who now has turned on him. Remember, he's a former federal prosecutor. And did you see the polls in New Hampshire? Not that it means anything at this point, but he's now number 2. He's ahead of DeSantis. So
this is interesting. I don't mean to interrupt, but acolyte is a ding word, but I wanted to say, are you suggesting on some level that the smack talking, I mean, the real, frank, I'll call it, an honest smack talking that Christie is doing toward Trump, do you think that is politically effective?
He has no choice. He has no platform to run on except his criticism of Donald Trump. And so what he's counting on is that in New Hampshire, where there is, as you and I both know from many years in New Hampshire, the experience of people waking up and trying to do the right thing. I think of all the insurgent campaigns that have been run in New Hampshire going back years, but you can especially think of Gene McCarthy in 1968. Look, you have to deal with the reality. He wants to really achieve a victory in New Hampshire, and this is the only card he has to play.
So again, John, there is a GOP reckoning that has to happen with Trump and with the future and the ramp up to Election Day. This has forced that hand, it would seem to me, in a more obvious ways, meaning it's going to be in the news every day. In other words, there was always that reckoning, I think, John. Maybe you'd agree with me on that. But,
no, and I'm going to tell you why. Because the Trump supporters don't care about the reckoning. They care about Donald Trump. There is now a fixed.
I'm not talking about his devotees. I'm talking about the rest of the party, GOP.
Okay, but remember, if he has a grip on 40% of the Republican Party, there's no way the Republican Party can emerge unscathed by this debate. And that, to me, is what's critical. Look, I've taught courses on the Republican Party. You know my history in the Republican Party. You know that I'm viewed as a scholar of the Republican Party by many in the political world. This is a tragedy of the first order. I listened this morning to Adam Kinzinger, the former Republican congressman from Illinois, who was on the January 6th commission. And he has been very clear. He doesn't get it. And neither do I. How can people be so blind as to follow Donald Trump down this path? And may I tell you what really offends me? What really offends me is there is a substantive series. There are a substantive series of indictments against him now. Do you hear any of the Republican defenders of Donald Trump discussing the substance of the charges? No. It's all an attack. And that reminds me of Roy Cohn. Roy Cohn, who was Joe McCarthy's hitman, made clear to Donald Trump and Donald Trump's father, Fred, that there's only one way to deal with these problems, and that's attack, attack, attack. Never concede. And that's what you're seeing now with Donald Trump. And it is an American tragedy. This morning in my commentary on my own
around the political world with John Rothmann. Yeah.
I talked about a contrast. Harry Truman wrote a book called Mr. Citizen. He wrote it after he left the presidency, in which he describes how a president who leaves office goes from this high, exalted office to being just a plain old ordinary citizen. Donald Trump doesn't get it. And the shame of the Republican Party is that they continue to embrace Donald Trump. How they will escape that shadow is really going to be interesting. And may I say, I don't support Mike Pence, but 3 cheers for Mike Pence, having the courage to say publicly, we lost Georgia, and I did the right thing when I counted the electoral vote, or when the Senate counted the electoral vote.
That's how far we've fallen. We have to give 3 cheers to Mike Pence. All right. Now, John, I want to ask you about something that has been talked about. It's the notion, and here it is. Phineas has this question for you. Mark, ask John about the Lincoln Project contention. The Lincoln Project essentially is amplifying a contention that's been out there for the last few days, that Trump can't run for president and is disqualified. Can you speak to that?
I don't believe that's true. It's a notion that has been raised by some. Donald Trump has a perfect right to run for president. He has another term if he can win it. And there's nothing that would disqualify him, in my judgment.
There's no constitutional exception for him. As a result of being
did you
part
see
of
Donald Trump's name in the Constitution? I sure didn't. And he's not viewed as somebody who committed sedition or treason. Please note that those words are not used in any of the indictments dealing with Donald Trump, and there's a reason for it. Look, Donald Trump made a statement this morning that they are trying to get him through the judicial system, and he wants to have the opportunity to present his case to the American people, and he believes the American people will vote for him. God bless him. That's exactly what should happen. He should present his case to the American people. And I believe, because I really believe that the American people have good sense, that they will repudiate what Donald Trump is doing. Do people understand? And I don't want to be preachy, but do you understand the assault on American democracy that Donald Trump is perpetrating? His insult to Fani Willis, his insult to Jack Smith, his insult to anybody who opposes him is no defense. It reminds me of a bully on a playground when I was in school. That's what it reminds me of. You want to deal with this issue Monday. I want to see how Trump and his lawyers respond point for point to these indictments. That's going to be the test. And the American people, but most particularly the Republican Party, have to understand that. I'm not interested in what the Democrats have to say. They'll have their say come Election Day in 2024. What I'm interested in is what the Republican Party will say as they choose a candidate for president. And I have to believe that in the end, if people understand what Donald Trump has done to subvert the Constitution, to subvert the American electoral process. And some of you are saying, well, John, how can you say that? After all, there hasn't been a trial yet. I can read. I can see. I don't think that any of those who are defending Donald Trump have read the indictments. And if they read them, if they want to have a debate, let's have that response. And that's why Monday is going to be so important. How Donald Trump and his lawyers respond to all of this is going to make for fascinating listening.
Well, his lawyers, when you say the ones who are defending him in court, are not going to be the ones writing up whatever document he wants that supposedly exonerates him. I mean, he's going to. The exoneration of Donald Trump is a much higher bar than just one set of documents that's going to be produced on Monday. I don't think he can issue a statement that will have legal grounding. Do you understand? Without his lawyer's participation. If he does, I see. Okay.
If he does, he takes a terrible risk.
Yeah, a lawyer might have something to do with it.
What he says can be used against him. And
Sure.
that's one of the things, if you listen to all these attacks, he was instructed not to do this. And he is, in fact, I believe, in contempt of court, but truly is in contempt of the Republican Party and in contempt of the American presidency and in contempt of the American people.
What I've said here is that he's being given a much broader berth than you or I would be given because of his position. And this is where you and I disagree. You have such faith in the institutions of America and institutions of our government. I don't have great faith in them. And one of the reasons is I think they give this guy and those like him, Donald Trump, the freedom to go after smack talk, essentially, justices, prosecutors, and private citizens. Look what they did in Georgia. Those poor women. My heart breaks for them. And that was all part of a Trump a campaign of attack, as you know, John.
Not to contradict you, but in all our time on KGO for the last 2 years and longer, people said he'll never be brought to justice. There'll never be an indictment. Nothing will ever happen. And many of our regular listeners will note that I said, yes, you have to believe in the legal system. You have to believe that in the end, he will be held accountable. And let me tell you, he can't erase these 2 indictments. He's going to have to go to court. And do you understand the implication here? He will have to be in court. He will not be out campaigning. He will be in court when these indictments are presented and the trials are held. And he's going to have to sit through it, and we're going to have to sit through it. And one last point, because I know you're running out of time, I want to see this broadcast to the American people. If we could watch the O.J. Simpson trial, by God, we should be able to listen to the trial of Donald Trump.
Well, you should be. You'll be able to in Georgia, not on the federal level. John, not to take issue with you, not taking issue with me, but what I would say is that, first, I never said he wouldn't be indicted, but he will never do a day in prison, and you know it as well as I do. And number 2, I have always felt as though, and it was true, that the systems of government are not really going to curb this dog. You saw it happen. There were 2 impeachment trials. He skated on both of them.
No, please. First of all, so you're very clear, the impeachment trials were political. We knew how the vote would come out before the trials took place. And your father is an expert on impeachment, and he and I talked about that on the air, and he was absolutely right. This is different. This is a judicial proceeding. And I do not believe that politics will corrupt these indictments. I believe they will, in fact, be. And as for jail time, I don't care if he sees a minute in jail. You know what I care about? That the historical record is clear. You talked earlier about the obscenity of what's happening in Arkansas over black studies. The absurdity of that is that in the end, history will judge them wrong. Sarah Huckabee Sanders and the others, it's absurd. But I believe the same thing will happen to Donald Trump. I believe the bar of history is what he stands before now. And if you read, and I think you have, and I know I have, you read these indictments, they are not superfluous. They are not silly. They are not driven by anything other than a hard fact. And that is what he's going to have to confront. And if he never goes to jail, doesn't bother me, because his reputation, because I do these rating of the president's things every year, I want to be very clear. He will rank at the bottom of the American presidents. There's no redemption here. There's no second chance. And I think his conduct every single day, his use of language, his attacks on people, his attacks on the American system reflect on that. And in the end, he'll be judged harshly by history, which is more important to me than whether he goes to jail.
Yeah, John's right that the indictment doesn't read like a political document. It reads like a story, and a really well-documented story. I'm sure those who would defend the president would say, yeah, but that's an indictment. That is not a conviction. But I agree with...
May I point something out to you?
Yes, sir.
The tapes and materials which have been assembled here, we haven't seen them yet, but we know they exist. Richard Nixon, on the June 23rd tape, when he conspired with Haldeman to cover up the Watergate business, it was a simple comment. Nothing happened. There was no substance to it, but it was the idea of conspiracy. And that's what caused Richard Nixon to resign the presidency of the United States 49 years ago. Make no mistake, in these indictments are the evidence of conspiracy to subvert the American system of government. And I don't think anything that Donald Trump can say or do will correct that. And 3 cheers for Mike Pence. And I throw him in again, because Mike Pence had the courage to say, we lost Georgia, and he did the right thing on the counting of the electoral vote. And although I don't agree with him, as I've said, I think he's spot on, and we're going to see. But I know that you and I next week, if not before, and if you want me at any time, all you have to do is call me. I'm going to be listening to that press conference Monday to hear what Trump can come up with, because I don't think it's going to be anything.
No, I think that's going to be a joke. But I mean, we'll be listening, but I'm not looking forward to it with any great anticipation in the way that you might look forward to something substantive. But I just want to revisit this on the way out, John. Again, we mentioned it in the context of the Lincoln Project, but it was really forwarded by 2 prominent conservative lawyers,
Republicans,
who said, look, this guy who was involved in sedition, and it's clear, indisputable, that if you're involved in insurrection, you are barred from holding government office. And then they made the arguments, but the professors William Baud and Michael Stokes Paulson, they make these, and these are prominent conservative lawyers. They're law professors, actually.
Can you tell me, where is Donald Trump charged with insurrection?
Well, no, but this, okay, no, thank you.
Nowhere.
Thank you. So that, I want to be clear then. So that's your point, because you said it. You, John Rothmann, in this conversation said he was involved in trying to overthrow an election, and you went, you did your Rothmann thing accurately, I feel. But your point is, legally, he isn't tagged with that, and for that reason, you don't sign on to those prominent conservative law professors' thesis. Is that the point?
No. Yes, exactly. And I don't want Trump to be a martyr. I don't want him to be able to say that the American political system prevented him from presenting his case. Quite the contrary. I want his case presented. I just ordered Alan Dershowitz's book. Alan has a new book out which defends Donald Trump. I can't wait to read it, because I want to see what it says, why it takes that approach. But I have to tell you, bottom line, this is one of the most important moments in the history of politics in the United States. It is to the very heart of the integrity of our government, very heart of the American constitutional system. And Donald Trump must not get away with what he's doing, because it would damage severely the integrity of the American system, which protects you, Mark, and protects me, and protects all of our listeners.
Shout out to Jim Avila, who in the super chat says, God bless Rothman. Donald Trump is facing justice. All I care about is that he is never president again, says Avila.
Big shout out.
There's the Jim Avila who's here on Fridays, as you know. As to what happens on Monday, you're talking about anticipating that statement and that document. Chocolate Milk says, I'm guessing Donald will have conspiracy theory posts from social media as, quote, evidence. It'll be the same shtick. By the way, shtick, I will ding. I think mad respect for using the word shtick.
Whatever he comes up with, and he's talking about a thick document, whatever he comes up with, I doubt will make any difference.
He's talking about a thick document. He has no idea what the document is. He's talking,
Mark, be clear. Whatever he presents can be used against him in a court of law. This is not a political proceeding. This is a legal proceeding. And the judges in several different cases have made clear that Donald Trump will be held accountable. By the way, that includes, I would suggest to you, the threats he is making. If any of these threats were to come in any way to fruition, that would be another ding, if you will, on Donald Trump.
Well, I mean, if any of these threats come to fruition, they're violence adjacent, I'd suggest, if not actually violent threats. Gates, alongside Trump at that Iowa rally, actually called for violence. Ford, quickly on the way out, because you were there, Ford pardoned Nixon. So he was. Your point is, though, Nixon, in his resignation, essentially tapped out. He was held to account in that way. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Let me be crystal clear. My dear friend Richard Norton Smith has just written a new book, the defining biography of Jerry Ford. Let me explain to you that in the interview that that Richard Nixon did with David Frost, he said, "I impeached myself. I gave them the sword and they thrust it into me." Nixon conceded the fact that what he did was wrong. I would like to see the same confession from Donald Trump, but I never expect to see it happen. And may I tell you, there's a difference between Nixon and Trump. Whatever you thought of Richard Nixon, he respected the Constitution. He may have abused it in the sense of what happened with Watergate. But in the end, his resignation came because he knew that he would be removed from office. Republicans came to him and said, "You're out." Do you remember the delegation that came in? John Rhodes, who was the Republican leader in the House, Barry Goldwater, the elder statesman of the Republican Party, and Hugh Scott, who was the Republican leader in the Senate. They came to him. And you know what Barry Goldwater said to Richard Nixon? Nixon said to him, "Barry, how many votes do I have in the Senate?" And by the way, I've heard this many times, but I was sitting with Goldwater and I asked him the question, and this is how he answered it. He said, "John, I looked Richard Nixon in the eye and I said to him, 'You have at most 6 votes, and I am not one of them.'"
No,
and
spectacular.
That was
what
the
a
kind
quote.
of strength in
Sure.
the Republican. And by the way, I didn't vote for Goldwater for president. There were a lot of things I disagreed with Barry Goldwater, but it's like Mike Pence. When somebody has fundamental integrity, that has to be acknowledged. It's what Kennedy wrote about in his book, Profiles in Courage. So I throw this out for people to consider. And I'm going to tell you,
But by the way, just because you're throwing it out there, there's a political aspect to what you've just said. In other words, he saw the political winds having completely turned on him. Trump has not seen that yet, John, because it has not happened.
He will never acknowledge it. It goes back to Roy Cohn. Never admit that you did anything wrong. And I think that is the mantra, if you will, of Donald Trump. And what worries me is, to his supporters, he will become a martyr. Win, lose, or draw. He has been, it's what I go back to, persecuted or prosecuted. Donald Trump is not being persecuted. He's being prosecuted for crimes. And a criminal needs to be held accountable. And I think, if nothing else from these indictments, we can take solace in the fact that the American legal system and the leaders of that system are letting this play out as it should. In the end, Donald Trump will be judged by a court of law. But as I said before, more important will be Donald Trump being judged at the bar of history. And I believe history will find him guilty of trying to subvert the very political system, which is the bedrock and the strength of the United States of America.
Around the World, Around the Political World with John Rothman is the name of the podcast. Around the Political World with John Rothman. He's here on Wednesdays. Solace I will ding. Yes. And John, you're terrific. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward
I look forward to next week and anytime, Mark. And may I just, one more thing. People should subscribe to the Mark Thompson program. In order for Mark to be able to do this and continue to do it, and for Kim and Albert and the others, they need to have support. So if you've not contributed, no matter what the dollar amount, please do contribute to the Mark Thompson program. It's the Mark Thompson program.
Wow.
And,
I'm so glad please. John, love that. Really stuck the landing, Rothman. You're a sexy fool. I love you. And the more you speak, the hotter I think you are. John Rothman, everybody.
Bye.
See you next week. Thanks, man.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
Yeah, how about Rothman? Is he great? I love that John Rothman. Really do. We've got a lot to do, and it's nothing to do with Trump from here on out. So if you needed your Trump fix, we gave it to you. Look, it's a significant thing going on in our lives. I've said it's, it's historic to the point that I would put it on the scale of, and this is where historians can rate these things or categorize these things or assess these things in a way that speaks to where they are in history. But I think it's up there with the Civil War. I really do. I mean, this is a huge thing. And when I say I'm talking about it as a moment of reckoning in America, obviously the Civil War had, the lives lost and the bloodshed and I put the Civil War, way up. But I'm just talking about the fact that we have a kind of normalcy bias. We tend to go, well, everything's essentially okay. ESPN still has Monday Night Football, and the Giants are still in the pennant race, and we look for, and the kids are still going to school, and there's a normalcy bias. There's a bias toward continuing and going, well, the system worked. You always hear, well, the system worked. There is a serious reckoning going on. And when I say a reckoning, I don't just mean a political reckoning. I mean a cultural reckoning. When one group talks about the other as the enemy, you just can't really reason with the libs, and you can't reason with the MAGAs. And you end up in this place that is scary a little bit. And I'm not trying to scare anyone, except I'm trying to contextualize this moment in history as it relates to Donald Trump. So Jim Avila, we posted that before. Thank you again, Jim. And Jim is there with Rothman on that, and I don't disagree with what the two are saying. I will say that whenever I hear it'll be up for history to judge, I always know I'm losing.
It's not good enough.
Yeah, I hate. Don't get me wrong. I understand the power of that remark, and I understand the way that history will judge. But I know that if I have to default to, well, history will judge him harshly for what he did, then I know that he won. And may not have won in the eyes of history, but he won in the moment. And it's kind of when people say, well, at least you've got your health. I know if I've got to get to the at least I've got my health argument, things are really bad. So I'm glad I've got my health, just like I'm glad history will judge him harshly. But I'd like the judgment to come now. And so that's where I am on things. It's just the brutality and the horror associated with what was going on. I mean, to really take power. It was a real attempt to change American government into this autocracy. So, and there were a lot of people signed on. That's why this case in Georgia is so powerful, because it speaks to the number of people who bought in. And they didn't even list all the people. No. We talked about all the fake electors in all the different states. They had people willingly signing on to this in scary ways. So, Randy, history is going to come really soon, the 2024 election. That'll determine how the country judges Trump. Interesting, Randy. Yeah. Go ahead, Kim.
Think
Sorry.
When you talk about history, let history be the judge, or, what the legacy a president leaves behind, that's great. If you want to talk about legal things like, rather non-legal things like economic policy, how did the president do on social policy? How did the president do on foreign policy? Let history be the judge on how you did your job in office. That's not, did you break the law? Did you subvert the will of the American electorate? Did you tamper with voting machines? Did you call people and try to hustle up more votes that you didn't earn or win? That's different than let history be the judge. That's criminal. And history will likely judge that too, and hopefully everyone that was involved. But there's a big difference between let history be the judge and you shouldn't pay for the crimes you allegedly committed.
There's a new participant in our chat. I'm not right, but this guy, I think it's a guy. I want you to join us in Talk to a Rando. So I want you to write to me, and I'll actually put you on with me. This regulatory affairs guy. The Confederate flag has long historical significance, unlike Marxism. I don't know what that means, but I put the comment up there because I'd love to. I'll debate anything with you, regulatory affairs. Please come join us, and I will not call you names or cut you off or anything. That's not my style. So you'll send how to reach you and a little bit of who you are to the Mark Thompson Show at gmail.com. We do this with other listeners and viewers as well. We got another one, a musician who's coming up. We just had so many events that we've had to kind of push it. And what I'd like to do is have you join us so we can actually have a conversation. I mean, to me, what you're saying in the chat, I see, and I don't see it as particularly defensible, but I'm happy to argue with you publicly, and you can make your remarks and, own me if you want. That's, so I would hope that we could get you in. Otherwise, I don't mind, again, I don't mind people with disagreements and people who are, I know I have a bias. We're right up front about it, but I also think that our bias is legit. I think we're talking about facts, X's and O's here that are indisputable. So I'm happy to have any conversations with anyone exist in the chat. So if you, regulatory affairs, if you want to join me, please do. The email address is right there, themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. Write to us, tell us how to reach you, tell us who you are, and boom, we'll have you on the show, and we can have you on just the way we used to at KGO, and we'll talk it out. I'm not saying that we'll convince each other, but at least we can have a conversation. Even though your views might be extreme, I'm happy to, like when you mention Marxism, I'm going, what, Marxism? What the hell does that have to do with anything? But I mean, I get it. That's a thing that, is yanked out. But maybe you have a good reason for mentioning Marxism. I want to hear it. So there you go. Smash the like button like a boss, if you would. We like the spirited conversations around here.
Iron rod.
Yeah. For Rothmann and the like. I'll remind you, tomorrow, David Katz is back in. He is the former federal prosecutor, and he'll give us a sense for some of the legal options of not only Trump, but Meadows and the other defendants in this case. So enough about all of that. Kim's News, and we continue. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and this report is sponsored by Coachella Valley Coffee. Let's talk about it. Maybe you're done, but I'm not. A Quinnipiac poll shows former President Trump is still a top presidential candidate despite his legal trouble. It's a head scratcher. According to researchers, 54% of respondents say Trump should be prosecuted on criminal charges. 68% of respondents said anyone who is convicted of a felony should not be president. That's not the law, but that's the way they think. As he faces a fourth indictment, though, Trump is now 39 points ahead of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. And if an election was held now, it would be a toss-up between Trump and President Biden.
He's one indictment away from winning it all, everybody. How about it? Come on.
Democracy, though, a main concern in this poll. 83% of Americans say they fear it will fall apart. Former Vice President Trump has some thoughts to share with us all as well. He is addressing the fourth indictment of his former boss. While speaking in Indianapolis today, Pence condemned Trump's refusal to concede that he lost the 2020 election, and he emphasized the election was not stolen. Pence, who is challenging Trump for the Republican presidential nomination, said no one is above the law, but added Trump and others indicted in Georgia are entitled to the presumption of innocence. Trump was indicted in Georgia Monday for his alleged efforts to overturn the election in that state. The former president has consistently claimed the election was rigged against him.
Cuatro años más.
Cuatro años más, says Mike Pence.
You know what it means when he says the election was rigged against him? We know that means he did the rigging. That's
well, I must say that he has changed his tune. This Mike Pence that we're showing on screen now. He went from Cuatro años más to that it wasn't stolen. So I'm just saying, these guys they know where their bread is buttered. All right.
How the political winds blow.
Yeah.
Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass's plan to buy a hotel and convert it into housing for homeless people comes to a vote this week in the city council. Now, this is the 15-story Mayfair Hotel in the Westlake neighborhood. It recently participated in the Project Room Key program, and according to the Los Angeles Times, it was a troublesome period for hotel staffers and neighbors as well.
It was bad. They did $11.5 million. You can check that, but that's my memory on it.
Google it.
$11.5 million worth of damage that the city had to pay the hotel. That's just in damage from these people they put in there. Crazy.
That's right. It was $11.5 million. You are correct.
All right.
Big winner.
Thank you. I'll take my
just to repair the
gift off of you.
damage done during the stretch of time when homeless people were temporarily housed there. 11.5 mil. Neighbors are opposed to the purchase plan based on the first go-round. Mayor Bass said things will be different this time. Acquiring and renovating the building will cost the city an additional $83 million.
Wow.
The council vote could come during Friday's meeting.
What?
Yeah, believe it.
Leaders from both chambers of Congress apparently believe a short-term government funding bill is necessary to avoid some type of shutdown. So NBC News is reporting that is what Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy told House Republicans this week. The Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said Wednesday he and McCarthy recently met and agreed to pursue a bill that would prevent a September 30th shutdown. Let's move to the border, because remember this floating wall? We've talked about it here on the Mark Thompson Show before. But there is now a hearing scheduled for next week regarding a lawsuit by Mexico against the state of Texas. A ruling by the International Boundary and Water Commission claims a string of giant buoys is floating on the Mexican side of the Rio Grande. The buoys were placed in the river at the direction of Texas Governor Greg Abbott. So, I mean, you can argue whether you want the buoys there or not, whether it's humane or not, but at least they should be on the Texas side.
Yeah, it's not your water, not your
come on.
real estate, right?
Right? I mean, so yeah, that's not cool. Remember him? His name is Kyle Rittenhouse. The story with him is that he is creating a nonprofit now in the state of Texas. The Rittenhouse Foundation will take on gun rights issues. Rittenhouse became a gun rights figure after shooting 3 people at a Black Lives Matter protest in Wisconsin in 2020. A jury found him not guilty of murder charges. Rittenhouse is no stranger to Texas politics, backing conservative candidates during the midterm. The new foundation he is creating has ties to other right-wing groups and shares links with the same billionaire backers as well. That according to filings with the Secretary of State's office. So it's
good that these gun rights people, though, are finally getting some support. Kyle Rittenhouse starting his own little foundation to support them.
Well, it's nice seeing people with like minds stick together, right?
Yeah, yeah.
George Santos back again, not at least his staffer is. A former staffer of Long Island Congressman George Santos is being accused of impersonating an aide of House Speaker Kevin McCarthy in order to raise money. Authorities who are already prosecuting Santos said Samuel Miel sent emails and phone calls seeking campaign contributions for Santos. Officials say Miel has been charged with aggravated identity theft and wire fraud. He was arraigned in downtown Brooklyn today, pled not guilty, was released on $150,000 bail.
So he impersonated being the staffer of another legislator? Is that what you're saying?
Allegedly to raise money for his boss. That's right.
Ooh, it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
I mean, I don't like it. Does it get any weirder?
Man, this guy serves up weirdness like a short order chef. I don't understand it. Really impressive.
It's the craziest thing. I mean, how do you think that's not going to go unnoticed? Or maybe they've done it and finally got noticed? I don't know.
Oh, that's an idea. Yeah.
So, disconcerting story. Younger people are being diagnosed with cancer more often than they were before. There's a study published in the journal JAMA Network Open. Go ahead with your JAMA.
Well, I can't play it the way I used to.
Okay.
We used to go JAMA.
Yeah.
Well, you can't play it anymore because we get, copyright. So.
Well, this JAMA Network Open review shows that between 2010 and 2019, there has been a substantial increase in the rates of early onset cancers, and gastrointestinal cancers had the fastest growing rates for young people, sadly.
It's what we talk about all the time on this show. By the way, you know who's involved in that research?
Emil Schaffhausen.
Yeah, he was involved in the research. But we talk about all the time. The toxification of the environment has real life, right now effects. And still, so forget about global warming, climate change. Oh, there is no climate change. The earth is always changing. Whatever. I'm not even having that argument anymore. I'm just talking about toxins in the air, soil, and water. We are polluting our surroundings, and then these cancers begin to manifest themselves at younger and younger ages in our population. It's so obvious. We're peeing in our own pond. I'm just so, sadly, you cannot fight these huge chemical companies. You cannot fight the fossil fuel industry. It's sad, but it's greed that has created an environment in which all these toxins can float around in the environment. And I mention it because there are things we can do, and you can vote for legislators who make a difference. This is, I'm probably a single issue voter on this stuff. I mean, I think that, show me somebody who really votes down the line to try to make a difference in the environment, and I'll show you someone who's on the right side of things and the right side of trying to preserve our species and our planet. So, speech over, but we talk about it all the time on this show.
They're kind of screwed in Goodhue, Minnesota. This town has less than 2 weeks to find a new police force. So the police chief of Goodhue announced his resignation at a city council meeting August 9th, and the remaining officers resigned 2 days later.
Seriously,
the mayor of
the
just to be clear, they have no cops there.
Well, they have them for a couple more,
they have 2 weeks. They all gave 2 weeks notice.
Yeah, and then that's it. Party over. Let the lawless mayhem ensue. This mayor of the town of 1,300 people said the officers will stay on the job till August 24th. So we know that there's kind of a shortage of police officers right now, right? I mean, you see communities all over the place. They're doing the unprecedented moves like offering big bonuses if you sign up to be an officer and stay for a certain amount of time in communities all over the place. How Goodhue, Minnesota is going to find trained officers to police their town within 2 weeks' time, it'll be a miracle.
Well, what they have to do, what they have to do is, at least in the short term, is that they're going to try to make a deal with another town or another law enforcement agency, quote, nearby. That's the only thing they can do. I mean, you can't, as Kim says, you can't, all of a sudden fly in a bunch of, some team of law enforcement people to an empty, police office.
Call in the National Guard.
What do they call that? Police, what is that called? Headquarters. Headquarters is the name of it, yeah.
Precinct? Station?
Precinct, thank you, that'll work too. But anyway, they have to make some deal in the short term, and then they're going to have to reconstitute how things are looked at in that town. I mean, that's clearly what's happened, right? They've all resigned in protest.
Yeah, that's it. What are you going to do? And so now there's 1,300 people in this town. I look at it like they're sitting ducks for crime, and no one's coming to their rescue. The police are supposed to be the good guys. You call in an emergency when you really need help. There's no one to help. You're on your own.
Well, cops would say, yeah, you say that, but, when we try to do stuff, you guys are all on our back when we try to enforce the law, and it's almost impossible to get out of the squad car or do anything without now being, taken down frame by frame on, well, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, you violated this guy. And so they're viewing police work as harder than ever. And I think it is harder than ever, by the way. But it can be done, and it can be done well and legally, but it does take, training, and it takes those who really want to do it.
Lastly, fans of Elvis Presley are remembering the king and his daughter. Lisa Marie Presley, of course, died this last January, but Elvis died on this day in 1977 at the age of 42. Elvis Week in Memphis, Tennessee includes a candlelight vigil that leads to Elvis's famous mansion, Graceland. So it is Elvis Week at Graceland and in Tennessee, and so the remembrance is underway.
I've told the story before about going to Graceland. I'd never been there before. I was there, and I'll just tell this story quickly, for Fox, because Fox sent me there for a show that was called Encounters. It was like 60 minutes, but it was, imagine 60 minutes if it only did UFOs and paranormal stuff,
Google it.
Yeah, and so they sent me there because there was a ghost of Elvis that supposedly showed up at his best friend's house, which was adjacent to Graceland. So I showed up the night before. I got up very early because I wanted to go to Graceland, but it didn't open in time. The shoot came first. So I went into the store with the Elvis Graceland souvenir shop, and I bought tons of these clocks. I mean, I might have bought 20 of these clocks where his hips wave back and forth. That's how how it keeps time, It's like a wall clock, but his hips wave back and forth.
Were those going to be your Christmas gifts for the year? Or
Yes, I was going to go. Yeah, you can find the clock online probably still.
Holiday gifts?
Yeah, it was holiday gift, but I never did make it into Graceland because of the shoot ran like 11 hours or something. So I still haven't been there. But all hail the king.
Well, this report is sponsored by Coachella Valley Coffee, and we have an exclusive deal for you, the Mark Thompson Show family, where you get 10% off of everything at Coachella Valley Coffee when you use this code at your checkout. It's Mark T. The coffee is amazing. The tea, I can vouch for, is amazing as well, and they're really nice people.
They really are. And the last thing I would say on this, or the second to last thing maybe, would be I've received some emails. A lot of people have really jumped on board and are really excited about it. There are all sorts of different beans. And one of the things I like about Coachella Valley Coffee, and you can find it at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Maybe, Albert, you can ping it up there right now so that people can see all the different varieties of coffee. So this is just coffee. As Kim says, there's tea, it's other stuff. But they source their coffee specifically, and they do it through these often female-owned farms, I should say, in Central America, South America, et cetera, in Africa as well. You can find all the different varieties there, and then it's all hand-roasted in the Coachella Valley Coffee. But the reason I mention all the different beans is you should find the one that you like the most. I mean, maybe the one that I like a couple different ones. I like the Ocotillo espresso. I like that a lot. I like the El Gato espresso. I love that too. You can find the one that works for you. I like that Sunrise blend for pour over and for if you're making a pot of coffee, okay? I just had a French press. I've been making French press all this week. So these are all different coffees with different tasting notes, and they're really good about telling you what tasting notes are associated with what bean. So I want you to get the one that's right for you. And you might like a strong brew, you might like, and the amount and the kind of grind that you produce, that'll affect the kind of taste you have also. So have fun with it, get what you want, and then use the 10% off discount, and I think you'll really be happy. I feel this, and I wouldn't say it otherwise. Yeah. This is the best coffee I've ever tasted. So check it out, and I'd buy the larger bags. At least this is what we do in our house. We buy the large, I like the 5-pound bag. We decide what we want, we get the 5-pound bag because that's a better value. You just buy a little bit more. So anyway, get what you want there, and then use the discount code for 10% off. Mark T is the discount code, and again, the website is CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. So, and thanks to them for participating in our show. I never thought that this coffee that I love would actually end up being a sponsor on the show, but I'm so glad they are, and I'm so glad that so many of our members of our audience are now aware of Coachella Valley and now ordering Coachella Valley coffee. So thanks a lot, guys.
That's nice. I'm Kim McAllister. This is the Mark Thompson Show, and I do have breaking news from Petaluma High School, where my daughter is attending her very first day of high school. I just got a text.
Let me guess, she's already got a boyfriend.
No, she has not been suspended or expelled.
Oh.
She says she's thinking about us, Mark, because she's right now in her class, broadcast journalism.
Wow.
So she said, thinking about you guys. So that's cool.
I love it. Well, let
There's
her
never
be
been anything like this later.
Yeah, let her be the future.
The Mark Thompson Show.
My wife wants some vegetables for crudité. I was a basketball referee.
Feels great, baby.
Use Mark Thompson. It's unbelievably offensive.
What he's got going here is a situation.
I was fortunate. Everyone I worked with made me better at my job.
You are a cover-up artist, and you are a liar.
Yeah, loving life on a Wednesday. Glad you could be with us. If you're new, this is our show. It's kind of a radio show, television thing coming together on YouTube. So smash the like button if you haven't. I guess on YouTube, that's important. How many likes you have versus how many views you have. Also, if you can recommend the show, hey, you might have liked the Rothmann segment today. We'll break that as a separate video. Send that video to whatever your social media might be on Facebook or whatever. Maybe you like the David Katz stuff. All this stuff is broken out in separate videos. You can post those videos on your Facebook page, and that spreads the word and helps us grow audience. You guys have been really cool. A lot more people are watching this show now than were at the beginning. There are a lot more subscribers to this show now, but it's a super slow process. You're part of the process of growth. So thanks so much, all of you who support the show financially and who also share the show. We thank you very, very much. Now, Albert, you want to stick the landing with a law and disorder? Do you want to do... I think law and disorder is right on here. We can include the driverless car sex in law and disorder. Wouldn't you like to do that?
Yeah,
I mean, I think that,
yeah. As long as we get that, I don't care where we go. As long as we get that story in before 1 o'clock.
All right. So, are you poised with the law and disorder production elements, sir? I will then.
I am ready. Yes.
Okay. We like to. We like to look at those things that are going on with law enforcement, with the law, with the craziness that affects our streets. We do it in a segment that we regularly do called Law and Disorder.
In the criminal justice system, the people,
pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care,
are represented by two separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law. You're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
Let's get into it. In San Francisco, everybody, those crazy libby libs in San Francisco. You know where they're having sex now? They're having it in those robo-taxis. That's right. Yep.
Well, it is a place of privacy.
Yeah, exactly.
Ooh,
it's a wild idea, but it just might work. Yeah.
What if there's cameras in there? Aren't there cameras all over that thing?
Sometimes that's the kink, baby. You gotta, yeah. It's a It's a new thing. Get yourself a robo-taxi and get it on.
Who is
Right
having
now,
that conversation?
mating season, and they're hungry.
Right now, it's mating season and they're hungry. As autonomous vehicles become increasingly popular in San Francisco, some riders are wondering just how far they can push the vehicle's limits, especially with no front seat driver or chaperone to discourage them from questionable behavior. For some, it's an invitation to test the autonomous vehicle's limits. Megan, a woman in her late 20s, took her first robo-taxi ride on a recent late-night excursion. It was also her first time having sex in a driverless vehicle, Kim. A woman.
Did you really just do that?
Yeah.
There's never
as
been
the
anything
woman
like this.
As the woman on the show, I, all I'm saying is maybe you want to speak to this.
I'm sorry, I can't defend her. I just can't do it. I mean, I think those robo-taxis, there's extra scrutiny on them, right? So everyone's looking at them. They can see what you're doing in the back seat. I don't think the windows are tinted, lady.
Oh, so you're saying there is a way that they're seeing what's going on inside your vehicle?
I would think so. Plus, I would be, there's people in the control room, right? Aren't they? They're monitoring the taxis. They probably can look inside, make sure everything's going on, that you're not
Sometimes they're not monitoring the way they should, but I take your point. Yeah. Well, in any case, we got in and just got straight to it, Megan said.
Oh.
Yeah. Making out in the Cruise vehicle. There are two major driverless vehicle companies, Cruise and Waymo. Right. They had sex in Cruise. We got into the Cruise.
Did they give the name of that one so people can avoid it?
Yeah, they probably have sprayed it down since then.
Clean up in bok choy.
Megan, the 20-year-old who took her first robo-taxi ride in San Francisco, says, we got in and just got straight to it, making out. They were wearing nothing but a robe when they got into the taxi, so it was kind of a premeditated thing, it would appear. One thing led to another, and he made sure that, well, I don't need to say that. I have no underwear on. I'm ready to go in this kimono. And I was using his slippers that were like 5 sizes too big. Isn't that cute? Her accomplice was a man in his 30s, Kim. And Alex has said that he has done this 6 separate times in robo-taxis. Sometimes it's impromptu, and sometimes it was planned. There are others in San Francisco over recent months who have talked about these various encounters, and they provided receipts for all of these things. So this has been well documented by journalists who are reporting on the sex in driverless cars phenomenon.
It's a thing, huh? Kind of like the Mile High Club. I wonder if the engineers at Cruise and Waymo, like if they ever thought this is what the robo taxis would be used for.
Well, it's not the first time. I mean,
you'd never come up with that.
When Tesla came out with the autopilot feature, there were all these videos online of people doing it in the Teslas when they were doing autopilot.
Well, this just in, Cruise says they are always recording video in the taxi.
Wow.
They promise they aren't listening in on you, but if you request assistance, they can answer you, whoever's in the control room. So there's somebody watching. They're getting an eyeful.
Apparently, according to Megan, again, her name, the 20-year-old, it was getting hot inside the robo-taxi and fogged up to the point that the windshield was completely fogged over. Now, normally that would be a problem if there were a driver, but since there's no driver, they don't care if the windows are fogged up. But again, as Kim has said, this is all recorded because the robo-taxis have these cameras inside, and there are rules for riding in robo-taxis. And I believe they are violating those rules and have run afoul of the...
We have processes and protocols and standards.
Exactly. Run afoul of the processes, protocols, and standards that are typically associated with the robo-taxis. Meantime, in a more serious and bizarre note, an Orange County Superior Court judge, Jeffrey Ferguson, is accused of killing his wife, Cheryl, 65 years old. He's 72. It is a bizarre story because minutes after the murder of his wife, prosecutors say that a California judge shot off a quick out-of-office message to his court clerk and bailiff.
Get out of town. Gotta go.
What?
I just lost it, he said. I just shot my wife. I won't be in tomorrow. I will be in custody. I'm so sorry.
Oh, my God.
His court staff thought he was joking. 72-year-old Judge Jeffrey Ferguson arrested and charged with homicide. Authorities suggest it's an alcohol-fueled argument that led to this outcome. It began at a restaurant and continued when the couple got home from dinner. At the restaurant where there were witnesses, apparently he was pointing his finger at his wife and he was mimicking a firearm. When they got home...
Really nice guy.
When they got home, supposedly the fight escalated and his wife said, "Why don't you point a real gun at me?" At that point, Ferguson allegedly took out a loaded .40 caliber pistol from his ankle holster and he shot his wife at close range through the center chest. The shooting was witnessed by the couple's adult son, the only witness to the killing. Their son called 911, told the operator that his father had been drinking too much and that he'd tried to stabilize his mother, but neither he or first responders were able to do so. The judge called 911 after that to report that his wife had been shot. And the 911 operator asked if he had shot his wife, to which the judge responded he did not want to talk about that now. Police officers recovered 47 firearms and more than 26,000 rounds of ammunition from the couple's home in Anaheim. Yeah. Rifles, shotguns, handguns, all legally owned by the judge. A .48 firearm, a legally owned rifle, was later removed from the home and secured by defense counsel. That was likely the firearm that he used to kill his wife. He's been on the Orange County Superior Court since 2015. His term is slated to run through January of 2027. I believe, and you should Google this, Albert.
What's a guilty pleasure you have?
No, what is the...
Google it.
Google, thank you. That's what I wanted. The Google on this guy, I believe he can remain on the bench until his term is done. I'm pretty sure that's true.
From jail?
He's out on bail, I presume. Maybe not. Slated to run through, I'll give you more on the case in a second, but just check on that for me, Albert, will you? He's slated to run through January 2027 on the bench as a judge, and I think he's allowed to remain there. I don't know if he's still going to have a caseload. I'm just saying. Anyway, the case goes to L.A. County Superior Court to avoid any ethical conflict of interest, and he was the deputy Orange County DA, worked as a prosecutor for the office in 1983. He's been around for a while. As I say, he's 72. And his son says he didn't recall any domestic violence between his parents. He did say his father's temper flared with drinking. And the judge has no prior criminal record. He's charged with 3 felonies: murder, the discharge of a firearm causing death, and personally using a firearm. There was a bond, as I say. Yeah, Kim. So he was released from jail. He posted $1 million bond. And prosecutors have asked that his arraignment be moved up to August 15th So this week, that was yesterday, I guess. September 1st was where it was supposed to be. I don't know the latest on this. We've been sitting on the story for a couple of days. With everything going on with Georgia, we kind of haven't had a chance to get it off to you. But I believe he has been publicly admonished before. But check that, Albert. I'm pretty sure he's allowed to remain as a judge. I mean, again, until there is a verdict in the case. I mean, it may be a small point, but I think it's...
Google it.
Yeah. He did...
Yeah, I'm still looking, but yeah, he did actually text...
Yeah.
He did text, I just lost it, I just shot my wife, I won't be in tomorrow, to his staff.
Yeah, and I believe also, Albert, he pleaded not guilty in this.
Yeah,
which
he
is
did plead not guilty.
See, he pleaded not guilty to a charge that's associated where they have him on a 911 recording say, I just shot my wife. Well, the recording actually doesn't say that he shot his wife.
Yeah, it was a text to his staff. So he actually texted his whole staff that he won't be in the next day because he did lose it and shoot his wife.
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is this case has, evidence all over the place. You're tripping on evidence on your way to other evidence. His son is there, saw it, called it in. Anyway, but the guy pleads not guilty. I guess that's the way it just goes down.
It's interesting to me that he admitted it to all of his staff members, but he somehow cared whether there would be a voice recording of the admission on the 911 call. Wait, you already electronically admitted to committing the murder to everyone you work with. So I don't know.
So true. So true. It's weird. He's not in his right mind, obviously, but on another level, I mean, that was his plan. And finally, Albert, there was a story out of the airlines that you wanted. Can I finish with that?
Yeah.
Which one did you want?
Whoever is producing this thing has no idea what they're doing.
Which one, the Malaysia Airlines?
Yeah.
Okay. So Malaysia Airlines has actually charged this disruptive passenger for threatening to blow up the plane in flight. 45-year-old who's been charged with allegedly threatening to blow up the plane during a flight from Australia to Malaysia. Muhammad Arif, a resident of Canberra, taken into custody without incident. But the plane was forced to return to Sydney Airport more than 3 hours into the 8-hour flight to Kuala Lumpur. You have video of it, Albert? There it is.
They do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
Is that what he sounded like?
Yeah, it's just the tail end of the audio. But
yeah, he's there.
What's he upset over? What's happening?
He was one of 199 passengers. He got up, and another passenger said, "We just thought he was praying for everyone." People generally had a laugh, but 30 minutes into the flight, it got louder. They stood up, started pushing and shoving passengers before implying that they had explosives in a backpack.
Oh, no.
I don't think he specifically said bomb, said one witness, but he was carrying his bag and he said, "I've got power in my arms." Passengers spent nearly 3 hours on the plane after it landed before Arif was taken into custody. Gosh,
that's not what you want to hear as a passenger on the
plane.
Like
air travel is not already, he could get 10 years in prison for that. Yeah. That is law and disorder for today.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there.
What do I have to do? What do I have to do, Albert? I have to wrap up. But do we have any...
Yeah, I'm not sure if you got to some of these. We did get a
Pinky with $1 a day. Love
Big
my
shout
Pink.
out.
Pink hits us with $1 a day. Thank you, Pink.
Big shout out.
Yeah, appreciate
I'm not sure if
that.
we got to Louise.
Here's a special donation, says Louise. It's $10 in tribute to Professor Meowington's PhD, beloved companion, for 16 years of international superstar DJ Joel Deadmau5 Zimmerman. You're a cat guy, Mark, and you should understand. Oh, it's so sad. I guess it's a tribute would suggest that the cat's still alive. Is it a tribute to the cat's memory? I'm confused, but I'm guessing that the cat has passed. which makes me very sad because I love the creatures. So thank you for that, Louise.
Big shout out.
And I appreciate that. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. I mean, you can mock it, but I do cry a lot about the state of my little friends and everybody else's little friends.
Happened during Rothmann, so we have Mike Hendricks here for 10. I think.
Yeah, we got Mike Hendricks too.
Big shout out.
I did mention Mike.
And
I
Vivian
thought.
also.
And Vivian El Shawa.
Big shout out.
Shout out. You're all the greatest. Thank you so much.
This thing is ready to pop, people.
It is. Jump on board.
Thank you so much.
And thank you so much because we are so ready to pop. And I'll tell you something. We are past our pop on this show. How about Deirdre Lozica from Lozica Concrete, $20. Headed to San Diego next week, and we'll listen when I can. Have a great week, everyone. Wow.
Big shout out.
Big shout out to Deirdre and Lozica Concrete. As I've told you,
this thing is ready to pop.
It is ready to pop, and that's going to put it right over the edge.
Thank you so much.
For all my concrete needs. I love my Lozica Concrete. Aloha and mahalo from Karen Cooper. Help Maui if you can. So many different charities, so many different ways. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for supporting us. And we recognize our donors at the end of every show as well. So the After Party Live is next. It's an after party and it's live. That's
I'm
my
Shadow
favorite kind
Stevens
of
for the
after
Mark Thompson
party.
Show. Bye-bye.
John and Kim await you over in the After Party Live channel. Till tomorrow, we'll have David Katz and a leading pulmonologist tomorrow. Till then, bye-bye.